This Sunday, the president's health. The White House calls the president's condition very concerning, contradicting his doctor's upbeat public assessment.
This morning, the president is doing very well.
The White House scrambling last night to get on the same page.
He's made unbelievable improvements from yesterday morning when I know a number of us, the doctor and I, were very concerned.
Mr. Trump releasing a video from Walter Reed Hospital last night.
I came here, wasn't feeling so well. I feel much better now.
Who's telling us the latest on the president's condition?
Well, good morning, Chuck. The president's physician has given us the most recent snapshot saying that the president is making progress, but making clear he still faces serious risk. Now, the issue of transparency with the president's health is critical, and what we've had so far has been conflicting, contradictory information, even corrections coming from the White House. One example, on Friday when we first learned of the diagnosis, the official line from the White House was mild symptoms. Now we know from the chief of staff that at that same time, the president's doctors were worried, and they were particularly concerned about a rapid drop of his oxygen level. Still, the president's physician is not saying publicly if he ever received supplemental oxygen, and yet put out a memo that said the president no longer has a fever and is off supplemental oxygen. So there's been this kind of confusion about who is providing information and how clear that information is. We also know the president doesn't want to leave the messaging to others, not his doctors, not his chief of staff, not the White House staff. So he put out a 4-minute video that we know was recorded inside the hospital in part of the presidential suite, which includes office space for the president in addition to the medical treatment like remdesivir, which he is getting over a course of several days. And in that, he talked about his own condition, acknowledged that there are still difficult days ahead when his condition will need to be monitored carefully, but also talked about wanting to get back on the campaign trail. It's so clear that the most watched patient in the world wants to have some control over the message and how the public perceives his condition. Chuck?
Kelly O'Donnell getting us started right outside Walter Reed Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. Kelly, thanks very much. Those mixed messages that we heard yesterday, unfortunately, were not surprising given this White House's history of being less than candid with the public. We should note the White House would not provide a doctor or a senior White House official to offer an update on President Trump's condition. So, Jason, I hope that you are prepared to do that. So let me start with this. Have you spoken to the president in the last 24 hours? And if so, what is his condition?
I have, Chuck, and good morning, and thank you for having me on. Spoke with the president yesterday afternoon, and he's in very good spirits. Both Bill Stepien, the campaign manager, and I spent about a half hour on the phone with the president and going through all the updates on what's going on with the campaign. And really, the president said a couple of things. Number one, that he's going to defeat this virus, that as a nation, we're going to defeat this virus, and our campaign is going to defeat this virus. And once he gets out of the hospital, he's ready to get back to the campaign trail. He sounded pretty energetic. But he said something else that I thought that was important, too, Chuck, and that was to be careful. And that was to remind folks to wash their hands, use hand sanitizer, make sure that if you can't socially distance to wear a mask. And I thought that was a pretty important message to send and a reminder to the rest of the country.
I wonder if you could help us sort out a bit of the timeline. And I know that some of this is fast, but can you say for certain when the president started feeling ill? Was it Tuesday? Was it Wednesday? Was it Thursday?
So I can't speak to that. And so by having him at Walter Reed, I think that's smart. I think that's a good cautionary move since he is the president. And again, we got to get him healthy, and then we're going to get the rest of the country healthy and defeat this virus.
If he was diagnosed with this virus on Thursday and he's hospitalized less than 24 hours later, that doesn't happen with most COVID patients. How much of this is precaution, and how much of this is he's having a tougher bout than most people?
Well, I think they're taking a very precautionary move on this. Again, I can't speak to the exact symptoms or exactly what transpired on Friday, just since I'm not part of White House operations and I'm not part of the White House medical unit. But I do think that it was smart that they moved him to Walter Reed Hospital because, again, he's the president of the United States. And even though we have a very strong structure that's built around the president, Vice President Pence is ready to help out whenever need be. The good thing is that President Trump has been able to be in control and be in charge the entire time. And again, going back to my conversation with him yesterday, number one, he expressed thanks and gratitude to everyone there at Walter Reed. Right. He was very appreciative for the folks who showed up outside to cheer him on. But again, it's that spirit that we have to go and take this head on. And that's one of the things, Chuck, is that as president of the United States, look, he could have stayed upstairs at the White House the entire time, but that wouldn't have been the responsible thing to do if the doctor recommendation was to go to Walter Reed.
We're trying to figure out, though, is who should we take seriously here, the president's doctor or the president's chief of staff? Mark Meadows indicated that his vital signs weren't very good on Friday, that he ended up having to be on oxygen. The doctor said something else, and you're saying something else. You're sort of painting a picture that things weren't that serious on Friday.
So they take a lot of seriousness in these
upset,
precautionary measures. And
are you upset that you were exposed in a way that maybe that was lax protocols? I've talked to other people, by the way, close to this White House, who are not happy about the lack of information and are not happy that basically what was told to them was a safe place. Why do you believe that that's prudent with the president currently hospitalized with the virus, that for continuity of government reasons, should the vice president be traveling? Shouldn't he be mitigating risk of getting this virus? Shouldn't you guys be asking for a remote debate, for instance? I mean, wouldn't that be what's best interest of continuity of government for the United States of America?
But really the whole measure of mitigation steps that are required. Everybody's course in COVID is different. And it's really hard for me to comment not knowing his own case because he is high risk for the reasons that others have talked about with his age, with the fact that he's a male, with his obesity. But it is a bit, generally the course that we see is that it is from 5 to 7 days after symptom onsets is when you generally have a median of when people develop respiratory symptoms, might see a drop in oxygen. His course may have been faster, or they may have moved him. It seems like there was an event on Friday. Clearly, there was some event on Friday that led to a decompensation with this fever, potentially that he needed the supplemental oxygen that drove them to take him to the hospital. So it may have been a combination of the fact that he's the president, the fact that moving him to the hospital gives them chances to give him more therapeutics, and potentially that he's either having a longer course or potentially he may have had symptoms longer and may not have realized that he's had symptoms because they were vague and, may just have been fatigue.
What should we be on the lookout for when we do get briefings from the president's physicians that while, they may present something that seems very anodyne, but actually will be very telling? What are some of the things you'll be looking for in some of these updates to tell you more about his condition?
Yeah, thanks so much, Chuck. The big things that we look for in COVID patients is, it's a 1-2 punch. When first the virus sort of does the damage that it's going to do, and then it revs up the immune system. And what happens in this setting is that you have a maladaptive immune system that then starts attacking your own body. And so what we're currently looking at is he received 2 medications, one that's under compassionate use, and the antiviral remdesivir.
I know that the Biden campaign thinks that the voters that are open to them view almost everything through the lens of COVID. It is affecting their lives in dramatic and profound ways. It's affecting the economy in dramatic and profound ways. And, they're not going to stop arguing that the president's administration has mishandled this. And then the other big argument they have against the Trump administration is chaos. Chaos and recklessness. And you saw chaos on display in the debate. I know that's what the Biden campaign thought was to their benefit. I'm sure it wasn't really fun for Joe Biden to go through, but that for the voters to see that kind of chaos on the stage hurt Trump. Your numbers reflect that. And then recklessness. And, the week ends with, after having the president getting this diagnosis, a lot of White House officials getting this diagnosis following the unsafe event in the Rose Garden last weekend. So, it is still early.
Peter, I'll start with you, which is, what should we as viewers and as the audience right now take away from this?
Well, obviously people were unhappy, and what they take away is that Joe Biden was good enough and Donald Trump made people feel uneasy. And that's really what it was about as much as anything else. This is about getting things right in America, getting things back on track.
Nicole, it didn't seem like anybody was reassured by either candidate at the debate, even if they were certainly thrown off, perhaps, by what the president did.
What was surprising to me in this debate was the extent to which people were disappointed in both candidates. If they were looking for leadership, for any kind of assurance, for any direction for the country, they didn't get it from either one. And that was one of the things coming out of the focus group that was pretty surprising to me, that while the focus has been largely on the president's performance, I think people were disappointed a little bit in Joe Biden as well.
I want to put up we did so much qualitative and quantitative work this week with both of your firms, both doing regular polling and these focus groups. So we did these word clouds. We asked our polling respondents to just give us a word or phrase about the debate. And here was, Peter, the Biden word cloud of people that thought Biden did better. And what was interesting is how much it's about Trump.
The president was belligerent to the point of nuttiness. I thought Mr. Biden did not distinguish himself in a different way. He was not forthcoming about various big issues, the filibuster, packing the court, etc. Something that's disturbing, I'll leave it here. That may be the last presidential debate we see in this cycle. And the next two simply not happen.
Rich Lowry,
it'll be indelible memory.
And Biden wasn't great.
I thank you all for watching. All of us here at Meet the Press wish President Trump, the First Lady, and all Americans that have been impacted by the coronavirus a speedy and full recovery. And we'll be back next week, because if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.